My introduction is to discuss a little bit about what I'm not going to talk about, and keeps going down.
It's screw on the other side.
What I'm not going to speak about, so that's kind of like, get that out of the way, and a little bit about my own personal story. Maybe you can let her know in the back room up there. Anyway, so I'm really privileged, I really feel privileged and honored to be able to speak to you guys today. Gene, number one, Stephen, from the house of Ephraim, from where you're coming from, it's amazing. It's a big, it's very inspirational that you guys are leaders of such an interesting and diverse group, definitely an honorable group, and that have the best of intentions, coming to Yerushalayim, coming to Israel, and trying to either express yourselves or find yourselves or both, which I'm going to address a little bit today. On the other side, Avadia is just walking out, but Avadia and Rabbi Feld and the many others that represent the House of Yehuda, it's also, the fact that I was interviewed for the Jerusalem Post, and one of the things I felt the most important thing that we all need to do, that means both houses, is to teach. There's, as we were having the earlier discussion, the panel, I felt that the only thing that we really have in common, aside from maybe DNA, maybe not, okay, being brought up in the West, maybe not, there's really nothing else that we have in common except for the Torah. That's that which will bind us together, and that's going to be the real theme. So I'll tell you what I'm not going to talk about. So I'm not going to talk about the fact that the Torah is the breath of God, that it's His mind coming out in speech. Why did the Torah have to use the word God spoke and the world came into being? There's something about something from the inside which we cannot really understand, however deep you can go into the essence of God and make it come forth. I'll describe it perhaps in this way. We think of the creation of the world as yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. But that's not a real proper translation. Ex nihilo, it just doesn't really make sense, because the truth is there was something before the world came into being, and that was God. And He's not nothing. Okay? He's pure spirit, and from spirit came materialism. However He made it happen. I know there's an equation, E equals mc squared. Perhaps that's just the way we can best understand it to a certain extent. That there's energy, that there's spirit, and it came into being in a physical sense. I want to talk about my background a little bit. So basically I'm not going to talk about the fact that the Torah is the most intense thing that was ever created, if it was even created. We're talking about, it's like one and the same with God, right? We're talking about what the essence of the Torah is Hashem's mind, Hashem's thoughts, Hashem's ratzon, Hashem's will. We're not going to talk about that, because that everyone knows, right? What I'm going to talk about is the actual Torah itself, in the sense of how it was handed down at Sinai, what was handed down, and so I'm going to talk more on I'm not going to say scientific level or a physical level, because it's all metaphysical, right? We think of the Torah, everything about it is metaphysical. But we're going to talk about it a little bit more on a physical level. Now, before, we're still waiting for the PowerPoint to come up. This presentation, which we just saw, okay, and Yitzhak presented this idea of the two Jubilees, which, 1917 to 1967. But I want to share with you something, and we just read this last week's Parsha, Parshas Bahar. So there's a famous question that Rashi asks and seems to answer. Rashi asks and brings down the Medrash, what does Shemitah have to do with Har Sinai? Because that's the first mitzvah that's brought down in the Parsha by Bahar. It goes into detail about the 7th year cycle, agricultural cycle, turning into a 50-year Jubilee cycle. And he goes on to say that, and this is going to be kind of like the theme of today's lecture, that just as all the details, just as all the generalities are mentioned in the Torah regarding Bahar, so too the truth is that's by all the mitzvahs. Whatever was received at Har Sinai, we received both the most general laws and the particular laws and details. But what was he missing? And that's very nice, and everyone's satisfied. But we look a little deeper, we have to understand what exactly is the connection between Shemitah and Har Sinai. So, a famous commentator by the name of the Cleocars, whose name is Shlomo Ephraim, he says, what happened on that day? That day, we're talking about Har Sinai, the 50th day, the 50th year, the 50th day. What happened? You had the sound of the shofar, and you had a command not to harvest, not to sow. Don't do any work. Okay? No work on this mountain. In fact, you have to keep your distance. Don't approach it. Don't do any work. The shofar sounded, and what did the shofar represent? What we were about to receive, which is called freedom. True freedom. It's not a freedom from bondage alone, because we were also we were enslaved to our own selves as well. In order to receive the Torah, one must go through a period of personal and character refinement, and that is what the 49 days are. So what Hashem did, you have to realize, when we talk about the word freedom, cherut, he was going to give us the tablets. The word for engraved on the tablets, the word engraved, is not, right? It's not cherut, which is freedom, but it's charut. It's the same word, it's the same root. It's through the engraving, the creating of the borders, creating holiness, because that's what holiness is, separation. And creating borders, you create holiness. And that's what Hashem did. He gave us these tablets that were engraved. They weren't written on where you can scrape it off or add, because you can't diminish, right? You can't add. This is Hashem's finger himself. He inscribed. He engraved. And it's through the word of Hashem that one will find their freedom. And the shofar represented that. What happens on the Jubilee? It's forbidden to work. It's another Shemitah year. The Shemitah year means you have to let the land lie fallow. No work on the ground. You blow the shofar, that hallows in the year, and all, not just the slaves go free, but everyone goes back to their ancestral heritage, which is key here in the Jubilee. And the other idea, besides the blowing of the shofar and the no working of the land, but it's an opportunity. Why do you think that the farmers, what are they going to do for that whole year? Any guesses? They're supposed to learn Torah. They're supposed to sit and learn Torah, which is what we're going to talk about today. Again, if we can, well, that's up. Okay. So what did Hashem do? He took what took place on the mountain, the shofar blowing, the forbiddenness of the working of the land, and the essence of freedom. I see we're coming up there. And he placed that onto the land. He's like limshoch, as if he drew it forth onto the land. And what we're supposed to experience every 7 years and every 49 years is the Shemitah, and finally ending with the Jubilee. And I just thought to myself, again, whether Stephen is correct, I have no idea. But it's nice to think, right, that those who are amongst the lost 10 tribes, if they are amongst the European, where do we leave off? The idea that Hashem drew forth this holiness and he placed it on the land of Israel. There's nothing like breathing in the air. It says that the air causes you to be wise. So, and I still haven't spoken about my own personal experience yet. But just coming to the land, however long you spend here, the longer you spend here, the wiser you'll be. I promise you. Now, my own experience, I came for 6 weeks and I'm now 30 years later. I did not grow up in a religious background. I grew up in a very proud Jewish home. I say Jewish, we're going to define what that means. My parents, my mother's side were Kohanim. My father's side, my father's mother was from Levi. And we don't know who my father's father was, but I'm assuming that it's Yehuda, based on the names. My father's name was Natan, his father's name was Shlomo, and his father's name was Dovid. That doesn't mean anything, but there's a good chance that's where I'm from. I grew up in a very secular but proud Reform home, and something about, I'm not kind of letting you know a little bit about Yehuda, as we know that a majority are secular. They're not necessarily well connected with our tradition. Our great-grandparents were actually very religious, and my mother's memory of them was that they always went to synagogue. She called them professional daveners. They prayed professionally, whatever that means. They were always in shul, and they were always arguing. When I became religious, everyone in my family started crying. Not necessarily out of no, out of quite the opposite. They were very happy because they remembered my aunt and my uncle. They just remembered what their grandparents and great-parents were like. And they thought this was a big comeback. And today, most of my family is, well, they might not be practicing Orthodox, but they understand this is the truth. I was so foreign to the tradition, even though we were proud Jews. Let me just explain another thing about the grandparents' time. You may hear the story from others. Going to America was very hard. They called it the Golden Medina. You know, leaving Europe, where things were already hard, and then coming to America, where the streets were supposed to be lined with gold. Of course, they weren't, but people had to work 7 days a week, and our parents, our great-grandparents gave up Shabbat, which was probably the halacha, to give up Shabbat until you have enough money to feed your family, and then start a business of your own, or just, get together and start a business together with other Orthodox Jews. But they forgot. How important was it? They forgot about Shabbat. So maybe a few months, a few years went by. Otherwise, what happened was if you didn't show up on Saturday for work, then you found yourself on Sunday looking for a new job. Which happened how many times? And then they gave it up and they forgot. The right thing, the correct thing, if you were passionate about your Judaism, was that in a few weeks, a few months, you're able to get enough money together, start your own business, to Shomer Shabbat, to keep Shabbat, to observe the Shabbat. But that didn't happen. So eventually, I married out. I married a non-Jew, I had a family. I really knew nothing about Judaism, although I was always a proud Jew. I have to say, when I was 16 years old already, I had a spiritual awakening, and I was searching the other religions. I got very heavily involved with Christian thought, Eastern Christianity, Gnosticism, and I was very much into the Essenes. I always wanted to go back to the source, back to the truth, It's got to be somewhere, it's hidden somewhere. And I have to say, if this guy JC is the Son of God, and all that he spoke was so real, I wanted that. I really wanted that. So I kind of followed in his footsteps, so to speak. And I started keeping kosher, and I started reading the Bible. You know what? I have to say, I kind of like realize there's too many contradictions for me in the New Testament and the Old Testament, as we call it, you call it, or some people call it, the Bible, the 5 books of the Bible, the 5 books of Moses. There was nothing missing. There was no need for improvement for me. And I started to meet Orthodox Jews, and I started learning more and more. And I used to go out to the J4J meetings, actually to try to bring our own brethren back. And I was sitting one night in the Beit Midrash. I eventually met my first Orthodox rabbi and went to yeshiva at the age of 23. And I was sitting up late at night with my New Testament and highlighter, and this rabbi caught me. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm preparing to go out to save our fellow Jews." So we had a long discussion, and he said to me, all you need to know, you want to be effective, all you need is to learn your own stuff. and I did that. And he said, commit yourself. Sounds like a big amount of time I'm about to tell you. Commit yourself to 10 years, and I'm going to tell you now, you're going to be very effective. So I did. I actually did. When I came to Israel, I came on a 6-month ticket. I had an idea of staying for 6 weeks in one particular yeshiva. Maybe I'll look around for others. I never left. I stayed there 20 years. But actually, I learned for 10. And exactly to the day, they asked me if I wanted to run the most effective and successful college-age program in Israel. It's called the Jerusalem Fellowship of the Nation Torah, and I ran it for 10 years. Then I went to business, and now I'm back in education. So, without any further ado, now we're going to start the lecture. But I wanted you to know where I'm coming from, and it will help you understand the lecture that I'm about to give you a lot more. We'll just click here.
I'll see if I can change it. I can change it. Yeah, I can take it fast. I can do it for you. Let me know when. Okay, I'll let you know.
What did Moses actually receive? Today, someone says, "Didn't you get my message?" I'm like, "Well, how'd you send it?" And they tell me, I don't know, some new app that I never heard of. So, of course I didn't get it. I mean, how many things can be running on my phone at one time? So it could be, like, how did Hashem send it? How did Hashem send us the Torah? Moses says, it's a little bit of a joke, right? I got a text message. Okay, great. So what if it wasn't only a text message? Maybe it was I don't even know the different types of apps. Maybe it was something a little bit more high tech. And we're going to see. So stay tuned. So now, the next idea, what do we need as a prerequisite to receiving the Torah? So we're going to find out that unity is really the number one. And I'm going to give you proofs to everything I say. Okay. We're going to see a verse soon. Not yet. It's going to discuss the idea that all the encampments in the desert, it says v'yachanu. Anybody knows Hebrew? It means they encamped. But at the 50th day, 3 days before, when we finally arrived at Sinai, it says v'yachan. He encamped. It encamped. It's singular. It's the only time. Very significant. There is a unity that is a necessary prerequisite for receiving the Torah. Now let me explain. Receiving the Torah as a nation, and I say a nation, I mean the 12 tribes. I don't mean Yehuda, and I don't mean Ephraim. I mean, every time I say the nation of Israel, I mean the nation made up of 12 tribes. Yes. Okay. So the unity of the nation, we said Na'aseh v'nishma. That's plural. We took an oath together. If one of you does not keep that oath, it's a reflection on me. Okay? If you don't keep it, it's a reflection. If I don't keep it, it's a reflection on you. It hurts all of us. One other thing, I just want to digress 1 second. Back to Rashi's original question. What is it about the connection between Shemitah and Har Sinai guess what? When also next week's parsha, we had the curses, because it was a double portion, Bahar B'chotai. All the curses are very general, but there's one that's very specific. And that is that if you don't keep Shemitah, you'll be exiled from the land, and how desolate the land will be. Again, we did talk about every curse, perhaps even being a blessing, because what that allowed us to do was when we came into the land, it was easier for us to take it over, because if another country had taken over the land and was successful in the agriculture area, it would have been very difficult to displace them. Okay, so unity of a nation was necessary. Oh, so what did I want to say? So basically, it was also the curses, which really adds to the idea of responsibility. Responsibility is going to really come in number 3, diligence, but good character. In Ethics of Our Fathers, that's Pirkei Avot, the 6th chapter, the 6th Mishnah discusses 48 ways to acquiring the Torah. The 49th is revealed. These are things that we need to do to change our lives. I suggest you, if you're interested, to go to that Mishnah and find out what the Mishnah asks of you, what kind of character development you need to do to acquire the Torah. So good character is one. That's number 2 already. Diligence, strength and determination. Okay? You set your mind with passion. We're going to see soon the verse. It's going to bring in Refidim and the wilderness. We'll see it shortly. Rafo Yadayim, the word Rafo Yadayim is a weakness of hands. So weakness, meaning the opposite of diligence. Okay? And the other idea is, where was it? It took place in the wilderness. So we're going to see what is it about the wilderness. It was only in the wilderness that we can receive the Torah. Only in a place of nothingness. A place where things will not grow. Things that will wither away. Where there is no ego. Okay? I've heard from you guys that coming towards Yehuda requires and asking for assistance. Requires a tremendous amount of humility. So don't forget that. That's us too. Everybody. Okay? We all need. And I look and I read through Kings and I read through Chronicles and I see the history of the kings, whether they were the righteous kings of Yehuda, especially not the righteous kings of Yehuda, the kings on the north. Whenever things started to turn well, it was always because the king approached in tshuva with humility. There was a turnaround of the heart, and it was the word humility is almost always mentioned. That it was a humbleness, humble. Okay, next slide. Let's see.
There we go.
All right. Okay, this is the verse that I wanted to focus on. As a prerequisite to the next verse I want to focus on. So this says, in the 3rd month from the exodus of the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, on this day they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai. They journeyed from Rephidim, meaning they left their what? Their weak-headedness, okay? And they arrived at a place of humility. Okay, it's not a joke, right? This is serious. This is the Word of God. And it's very deep. And we have to mamish put it on our hearts. We have to really, sincerely accept this as the truth. Rashi says, okay, that the end of the verse is, in Israel camped there opposite the mountain. In Hebrew, it's underlined, V'yachan Sham YISRAEL. Israel encamped there, but it's singular. All of Israel, one nation. Rashi says there, if you can read at the bottom, he says, Ki ish echad v'lev echad, which means like one man with one heart. Can you imagine that? I was hearing I think it was Stephen a little bit talked about the Anglos. What about the Germans? There's a lot of Germans here. I mean, we have to figure it out how we can all get along. And we said earlier, I think the only way is through the covenant that we were given. My opinion. Okay, the next slide. Okay, this is something that I felt was important for this conference. So, first of all, why is Am Yisrael today collectively called Yehudim, Jews? We are. So the question is why. So I have a couple guesses. And the first one is, we all know that Leah named her fourth child Yehudah. Now, there were 4 mothers, and there were supposed to be 12 tribes. In other words, with the Ruach HaKodesh, with the level of prophecy that our foremothers had, they knew. So Leah knew that there was going to be 3 to her, 3 to each of the other mothers, assuming that they were all equal. And when her 4th child was born, she realized that she got what? More than what she was due to her. More. So she named him Yehudah, which is she acknowledged the goodness that God bestowed upon her. And this is a trait. Did I get that right? This is a character trait that we walk around with. I made a bracha on the water. We have to walk around thanking Hashem, really, with all of our bones, with all of our sinews, with all of our, the blood cells, their DNA, right? I mean, this is what we are. This is what a Jew is. A Jew should be. So this is, when we say YISRAEL, this is just one reason why we are called Jews. Number 2, there's no question. You can go through the numbers. This is Parshas Bamidbar already. We already know whenever you count the Jews, however you count them, Yehudah was the largest tribe, and there were remnants. There always were remnants of some of the other tribes, which we'll talk about in the next one. But being that the largest tribe, it's very easy to call Israel by that name of that tribe. And this is a little bit more to the point. So before the Assyrian onslaughts, okay, what happened was there were many remnants. If you look in 2 Chronicles 30, 11 through 12, there were remnants. The pasuk, the verse talks about it. And it says, however, some people from Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. Also in Yehudah, the hand of God was upon them, instilling them, what? With united heart. To do what? To follow the commandment of the king. What's the commandment of the king? If we think about the capital K, king, we're talking about Hashem. Here it also was taxes by the earthly king and the leaders regarding the word of Hashem. So they followed the earthly king, which was the king of Yehudah. They basically, this is, as the next slide will say, what really happened. We see those who remained loyal to the king of Yehudah, which is equivalent to the words Davidic dynasty. They managed to flee to the south. They were absorbed into the largest tribe, whose area already included most of Binyamin, Shimon, many Levites, Kohanim. So those who were committed to and loyal to the Davidic dynasty were called Jews. And the next verse, the next slide. We're not going to go through them all, but there's probably many more. If you think about the idea that back in Genesis we spoke about, many of these verses were already spoke about today. But Yehudah, your brothers will acknowledge, again, the word Yeducha, right? Your own brothers are going to acknowledge you. Your father's sons will prostrate themselves to you, and he will be the assemblage of nations. So to call us Jews is not a big deal. It's understood. And then we see in the next, by Esther, Mordechai Isha Yehudi. He wasn't from the tribe of Yehudah. He wasn't. Because the pasuk goes on and says he was from Benjamin. It's like, okay, he lived in Yehudah. But we see many other times throughout Tanakh that Yehudah, or Jew, is not specifically only to those of the tribe of Yehudah. So all I can really tell you is, welcome to the club. It's not an insult to be called Yehudah. Okay. Yes. I'm telling you, this is my first time making a PowerPoint presentation, but it wasn't that hard to figure out. There's hope. Okay. So the very last part, we want to look into prophecy. Prophecy itself is very difficult. If I asked you, if a prophet came and said something and it didn't happen, is he a false prophet? Yep. Well, I hear most people saying, yeah. Well, I have news for you. It's not true. What do I mean? Let me define. If a prophet comes and says, like in Nineveh, guys, the future looks bleak, dark, things are going to happen that are very bad, and then they don't happen, that means he was an effective prophet. He's coming to warn the people to do what? Tshuva. So if he comes with a negative prophecy and it doesn't happen, you can never chalk it up as a false prophet. You can chalk it up as possibly an effective prophet. And they heard the message, they took it to heart, they changed their ways, and the negative prophecy never came about. But if a prophet comes and tells you a positive prophecy, it has to happen or else he's a false prophet. What I'm trying to say is that prophecy is not that easy to determine whether it's a good prophecy, a bad prophecy. Let's leave it aside. This is the last prophecy, though. So there has to be some significance to it that we're obligated to try to figure out. Most people don't quote the first verse that I quoted. They start just beyond that. Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant. Remember the Torah of Moses. This is for you guys. When do we start talking? Oh, how are we going to talk with each other? How are we going to figure everything out? Remember the Torah of Moses. My servant, which I commanded him of Korah. For who? For all Yisrael. Nachon? It's hukim, right? And it's statutes, mishpatim. It's decrees and it's statutes. Behold, I send you for Eliyahu the prophet before the coming of the great and awesome day of Hashem. And what will he do? He's going to turn you, right? He's going to turn your hearts, right? The fathers and the sons and the sons and the fathers. All of a sudden, what are we talking about here? There's a good chance we're talking about the Chiyat HaMesim. There's a good chance we're talking about the resurrection of the dead. That's easy. It could be we're talking about what's happening right now. Maybe this is the resurrection of the dead. All right, we finally arrived at the verse we're actually going to talk about. No, not yet. I added this in. I added this in because it's just to emphasize the unity once again. Many times this verse or these verses have been discussed at this conference. But I want to emphasize what I actually put in highlights, but number 24 is just as significant. I will make them into one nation. I mean, come on, guys. Why are we still talking about Ephraim and Yehuda? Okay? Fine. Into one nation, in the land, upon the mountains of Israel, one king will be king for them all. Who will that king be? King David, as 24 will say. There will no longer be two nations. So drop it. I'm just saying, at some point. And they will no longer be divided into two kingdoms ever again. But who? I skipped and there's a 3 dots. Like a bunch is missing. My servant David will be king over them. And there will be one shepherd for all of them. And what were they going to do again? Again? Follow my ordinances and keep my decrees to fulfill them. I want to emphasize that over and over again. Okay. If I push this again, what happens? Yopi. That's the mountain. Come up to the mountain. Come up to the mountain of the Lord. So what did Hashem say? Yomer Hashem el Moshe. Alei alai hahara. Come up. Ascend the mountain. V'yesham. Remain there. We're talking about come up on the 50th day and remain there for the next 40 days. Then and I'm going to give to you at Luchas ha'evan the stone tablets. V'hatorah. Wait, isn't that enough? Isn't? Come on, guys. Stone tablets? Not enough? And the Torah. V'hamitzvah. Singular. We don't know what that means yet. We're going to break this down. I'm going to ask you guys to think. And the Torah and the mitzvah. Asher kitavti, which I have written. What did he write? Only the Luchos ha'evan. Did God also write the Torah? Did Moses write the Torah? And what is the mitzvah? Lahorotam. Lahorotam means to teach. If you're asked to teach, you better be clear about what you're teaching, or you're going to get up there and make a fool out of yourself. How can you teach if you don't know what it is? we're going to see later on that there's a mitzvah to learn Torah. If I ask anybody, right, you want to know any mitzvah, 613 mitzvahs, to listen to the shofar, to sit in the sukkah, right, to put on tefillin, to wear tzitzis, you have in mind, you do exactly what it says. Is there a mitzvah to learn Torah? Is there a mitzvah to learn Torah? I want to see any hands. Yeah? Where is it? Where is it written to learn Torah? Says in Kriya Shema, Vishinantam levanecha, and you shall teach. How do you teach if you don't learn? Basically, you have to have it clear. You have to have it clear. You have to understand what it is you're learning in order to teach it over. But his job was to teach it over. So he had to know what he was teaching, right? So we're going to find out, what do these terms mean? Okay, we're going to hit, I think, one more. By the way, the tablets, they weren't round on top. They probably weren't blue, but it was the only thing I could find that were square. Okay, so the stone tablets for sure. Look at the Evan, that's the stone tablets. The Torah must be the Torah. The mitzvah, what does that mean? We don't know. But it says Asher Ketavti, which I have written. Which I have written, is that going back on the stone tablets alone, or it seems to go on the other two as well? Think, guys, Lahorotams. But still, whatever it was, had to be to teach over. So these terms, right, can not only be speaking about the 10 utterances, nor only the written Torah. Now, within the written Torah, there are many mitzvahs that require explanation. Okay? For example, tefillin. Has anybody not seen tefillin in their life? You've seen pictures? Okay. So we know what they are. But they're all the same, aren't they? Basically, these square boxes made out of leather, they're all black. Not pink, right? They're all black. So, how do we know what they are? What about on Sukkot? We take 4 species, and one of them looks like a lemon. Obviously, it's not a citron. But how do we know that that's what is the Pri Hadar? How do we know? Listen, you get 3 Jews in a room. I mean, we maybe have 5 opinions. I mean, this is clear. How many times you guys been around 2 Jews? How is it that there's like almost no arguments, right, about what these things are? When I say no arguments, everyone agrees that Rashi Tefillin is the one you put on with the bracha, and the Rabbeinu Tam is the one you put on without the bracha. But we all agree. And the Eitzadar, everyone agrees, it's the same citron. Let me ask you, how do you slaughter an animal? God says, slaughter as I have commanded you, and there's nowhere in the entire book that tells you how to slaughter. And the last one, let me ask you something. If I tell you, guess what? You have to keep Shabbos. And if you don't keep Shabbos, you're going to be killed. I mean, come on. You're going to say, please tell me exactly what I need to do, what I can do, what I can't do. You want to know details, okay? So, but the Torah doesn't give all those details, does it? So we're a little bit stuck here. Oh, watch this. So, for example, what are they? The fruit of the beautiful tree, what are they? How does one slaughter? I didn't want to show anything like really bloody. And then Shabbos. Just one flick of the switch. Oh no! Okay. So here we are. This is a Gemara Brachot. And it's just giving us a little bit. We're going to peel, when I sit and learn with my guys, we peel away layers of onions until we get to the core. Rabbi Levi Bar Chama, I'm Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. So Rabbi Levi Bar Chama said in the name of Reish Lakish, what exactly does this verse mean? The verse we just read, Hashem said to Moses, come up to the mountain, remain there, and I'm going to give to you the stone tablets, the Torah, the mitzvahs, which I've written what? Upon the Luchot. This is the words, sorry. Asher Katav Luchotam, to teach. So what is the word Luchot? Luchot means the tablets. That represents the 10 Commandments. It's also very, not a good translation, the 10 utterances. Eser Ma'amarot, Eser Dibrot, right? They were not the commandments, because as we're going to see, they were 613 commandments. So the Luchos, those are the 10 statements. Torah, this is Mikra. Why is it called Mikra? Why is the Chumash called Mikra? Because it's a mitzvah to read it publicly. We have to read constantly on a public basis from this Torah scroll. Mikra means to read. And that's the Chumash. That's referring to the Chumash. The mitzvah, this is the Mishnah. This Mishnah means it's the Oral Torah. It's the basis for the Oral Torah. Asher Katavti, which I've written. Well, okay, guys are all sitting down. The Gemara tells us this is referring to the prophets and the writings. Does this make any sense to you? Does this make any? First of all, even to tell me that the 5 books of Moses was given on that 40-day period, that Moses came down 40 days after being up at the top of the mountain with the written Torah, that is already heretical, perhaps. How can it be? You're talking about Leviticus, right? The rest of Exodus, but Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, all that was written? What's your problem? You have a problem with that? Come on, guys, think. Very problematic. And then the last thing to teach them, that's the Gemara. The Gemara is what? The pilpul, the understanding of the Mishnah. And what do we learn? That all of them were given to Moshe at Mount Sinai. So what do we really learn here? The bottom line. This teaches that all of them were given to Moses at Mount Sinai, but maybe they were not exactly written down until the proper time arrived. That could be, because why? If they weren't written down then, the Shir Katavti, which I've written, the Torah, the mitzvahs, let me ask you something. If you were Moshe, and you had the book in front of you 40 days after, wouldn't you read it? Wouldn't you say, I better not strike the rock. I can see it already, read the storyline, what's going to happen. Or, should I really send the spies? I know it's going to happen. And we're all looking forward to going to the Holy Land, the Promised Land. We're going to end up being 39 extra years here in the desert. So it cannot make sense that Moses received those books. And yet, we also talk about the prophets and the writings. According to the Gemara, Moses received the prophets and the writings the same day. Well, at the bottom line, we must conclude that Moses received all the fundamental principles of the Torah and the prophets, but not the exact wording, at least at that moment. In other words, as God dictated to the next 39 years, Moses wrote, this is easy to accept, and the prophets, remember, if you're a prophet, you're not allowed to say anything new. You can't add to the Torah. So they're just writing the principles that we already know in a fashion that God feels relevant for that generation and beyond. Did I freak anybody out yet? Okay. So that is a picture of Moses hitting the rock. And this is a picture of the spies. Well, you know what I mean. Not really. Okay. So, how many letters are there in the 10 Commandments? There are 620 letters in the first set. Did you know the first set and the second set were different? Okay, so you'll examine that, your homework. The same 10 Commandments, but in different words. Some of the words are different. If you want me to give you an example, the 4th commandment, for example. In the first set, it says, you should keep Shabbat, because I created the universe. And I worked 6 days and I rested on the 7th. In the second set, it says, you were slaves in Egypt. You worked, and then you rest. You're free. Okay, this is an example. But anyway, you have 613 mitzvahs. There's 620 letters. So, according to the Rasad Yigom, Rashi quotes, as you can see, he could categorize the 10 different commandments with the subcategories of the rest of the commandments under whichever category they most fit on. According to other opinions, actually each letter represented one of the 10 commandments, one of the 613 commandments, and the other 7, there's 3 different opinions. I just wrote down the most not controversial one, and that they represent the 7 days of creation. According to some, it's the 7 B'nai Noach mitzvahs. And according to another opinion, it's the 7 rabbinical laws that Hashem already created in action on Mount Sinai. Okay. Any questions yet? We can wait to the end. Now, is it really true? Could Moshe really have learned the entire Torah? No, I'm really pushing the point that what he got was the principles, and even that. So Midrash Rabbah says, did Moshe Rabbeinu really learn the entire Torah in only 40 days? So what does it say in Job 11:9? The measure is longer than the earth. Oh, I forgot to push this button down. There you go, 25,000 circumference, 25,000 miles, and is broader than the sea. That sea stretched out to the whole horizon. So is it really possible? The Medrash asks, could he have learned the entire Torah in just 40 days? So what will we conclude? Well, we're going to conclude what the Medrash says, that it was the principles that Hashem taught Moshe, as the actual language portrays. If you look in Exodus 31:18, it says, "Yitein al Moshe k'kalato l'daber, yito b'har Sinai." It was when God, he gave, this is in also last week's parsha. He gave to, it's in Exodus. He gave to Moses when he finished. That word kalato has been used for other drashot as a kala, like a bride, right? Who actually married Hashem. Okay, but also v'yachulu hashamayim v'aretz, when God completed, when he finished the creation of the universe, the usage of v'yachulu. It's also klalo, but here it's klalato, as in the word klal, coi-recon, the entirety in terms of principles, klalim are principles. So through the language itself, it implies that what did Hashem give to Moses? He gave him klalim. He gave him all the principles. Okay, I'm going to try. This is a very wordy, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. But whatever I underline, there's probably the more important part. But you know what I'll do? Let's just read Leviticus 26:46 first. These are the decrees that this was in last week's parsha. These are the decrees and ordinances and the teachings. Now in Hebrew, look at this. V'hatorot, 2 Torahs. We know there's only one Torah. So what is it referring to? The oral Torah. There's the written Torah and there's the oral Torah. That's a clue to what we've been talking about all along. We're going to get into. Now, what exactly happened? How did it work? We're going to see these ideas that what happened. Moses heard the word directly from God. Can you imagine hearing the word directly from God? For every mitzvah that Moses received, he heard directly, but it was also given with its explanation. Every mitzvah had to have an explanation. To sit in a sukkah, very nice, but how big? What's it made out of? Right? The shofar, what's it made out of? Tefillin, how's it made? Everything has its explanation. So God would tell him the mitzvah, afterwards he would give its explanation and substance and everything which is included in the scroll of the Torah. Now this is the historical. Okay, this is what happened. You can read it on your own, but I'll try to sum it up. Moses heard from Hashem, and he sat in his tent, in his Ohel Moed, and he told over to Aaron. Aaron sat to his left, okay, because Moses had to be on Aaron's right. So Aaron sat on Moses' left, and he told him the mitzvah and its explanation. Aaron then went to sit on Aaron's right, and Aaron's sons came in. So now Moses is teaching it a second time to Aaron's sons. And then after he finished telling it over exactly the way he told it to Aaron, he then had the 2 split up, one to sit on the left of Aaron and one to sit on his own right. And then the elders, the 70 elders would come in, and he would teach it again, the third time. And at the end, they would all move around and invite anybody who wanted the rest of the people to come in and hear it. So Moses taught it 4 times. Then Moses would withdraw himself, and then you had an opportunity for Aaron to do exactly what Moses had just done. And there's a mitzvah in our tradition to learn everything 4 times before you can even begin to think that you heard it the first time. And that's why in every Gemara, there's in Rashi and Tosfos, there's the top 4, there's always 4 lines on top to remind you to review it several times. Okay, then watch this. We're going to bring in all YISRAEL again. Here we are. So underlying it mentions that the officers would then transverse throughout Israel to teach and demonstrate until each one knew the mitzvah precisely and fluently. Guys, we have a lot to catch up on. Okay, the next one. Let's see. Okay. I think it's at the bottom. Just before Moses' death, Moses began to write the Torah in scrolls, 13 scrolls. Why 13 scrolls? Right? So that each tribe should have their own scroll. And what was the 13th for Levi? And where would they put it? I think I'm supposed to click the button. Nice, huh? So the 13th scroll went into the ark, the holy ark of God, in the testimony. Okay, so this is really getting complicated, right? I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. If we're dealing with principles, how are we supposed to deal with Shabbos elevators or cars and electricity and all kinds of things today? So according to the Rambam, Moshe received the description of each and every commandment, as well as what we call the 13 hermeneutical principles. I like the way it sounds. Exegesis. The 13 hermeneutical principles, which is the process of scriptural interpretation. Through them, it's possible to derive all the laws of the written Torah. Now, they actually ended at the time of the Gemara. The sages used them. Today, we really don't have permission to use them, and we use the tradition that we have handed down. So additionally, Moses was given the commandments verbally, including all the details of the written Torah, which was given to Moses during the 40 years in the desert. Any law that could be lost, the sages were able to derive out using the written Torah, using the 13 harmonical principles. As you see what's underlined here regarding Yoshua, there's no question about whether he or any of the elders had heard explicitly from Moses. There was no debate. Those ramifications of the statements which were not explicitly heard from the prophet, meaning Moses of blessed memory, they resolved through their understanding of the 13 methods of Torah interpretation that was originally given at Har Sinai. Some of those laws so extracted had evoked no controversy upon their proposal and were unanimously agreed upon, but some of them were subject to a different opinion. Guess, Boker Tov. Get 2 Jews in a room, you're going to have more than 2 opinions. So what do you do? What do you do? So, look at the bottom line. You shall decide according to the majority. It says in Exodus 23:2, Achrei l'Rabim l'Hatos. The Sanhedrin, 70 people. Any Beis Din has an odd number of people. You always have to go by the majority. And the entire Beis Din is their decree. Whatever they decide is majority, that is the Beis Din. Now, there's a book that Adam Arishon, you heard of the first man, and he authored a book. It's called The Book of Adam Arishon. And he foresaw, and this was handed down. This actually is a Rashi on the right side, which is 4 lines, just to remind us to teach it over 4 times before we teach it to ourselves, 4 times before we allow to teach it to other people. And in Rashi, in Bava Metzia, he explains that there's this foreseeing, right? We believe in prophecy, right? The foreseeing through Adam Rishon that Ravashi and Ravina of the Talmud would seal the deal. That's it. No more usage of the 13 hermeneutical principles. Now there's another book. We just went through the Rambam. Oh, that's Adam Rishon. maybe. So we went through the first Rambam that I quoted was called the Perush L'Mishnayot, Hakdama, the introduction to the explanation of the Oral Torah. This is Rambam's introduction to the Mishnah Torah. I'm really just going to skip around. He's basically said everything we said so far, but what I wanted to show you were the direct transmission from Moses to Ravina and Ravashi, the sealing of the Talmud. This is something, when you talk about the Jewish people, thanking them for keeping the tradition, we know who our fathers are. We know who our mothers are. We know who our teachers are. It's a chain. I think, here we go. It's a chain. Okay. And it goes down to the following, there's 40 generations exactly, from Moses until Ravina and Ravashi. As you can see in the left paragraph at the bottom, Ravina and Rashi were the final generation of sages of the Talmud. Ravashi composed the Babylonian Talmud in Shinar, which is Babylon, approximately 100 years after Rabbi Yochanan composed the Jerusalem Talmud in a place called Palestine. Okay. This is interesting on the right side. So you wonder why the Jews had the right to develop customs, right, and to make rabbinic additions, right? You should not add to the Torah. But we have a verse that clearly says that you shall observe my precepts, which means make safeguards for my precepts. When Chazal, when the sages made up laws, they were there to protect us. So the Torah itself says to make fences, but those fences are called rabbinic. They're not called biblical. A human being cannot come and make a law called biblical, right? It's like simple math. But if Hashem says, I want you to make sure that my people observe my Torah. So for example, I'll give you an example. Blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. They were afraid for that one soul might be cut off from his people if he went out and he took this shofar on Shabbat, which you're not allowed to carry on Shabbat, outside of an eruv, outside of a certain area. The kid went and said, I want my teacher to teach me how to blow it. Or people didn't have a shofar in shul, so they started transporting shofar on Shabbos. So it's better not to blow the shofar. We all lose out on blowing the shofar because of the concern for every Jewish soul. Keep in mind, this is like fundamental. Whenever the rabbis came up with anything, you always have to ask yourself, what were they trying to protect? Remember, Rabbi Feld talked about this. We always have to give people the benefit of the doubt. Trust me, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. They always had, they were our shepherds. They are our shepherds. They were our shepherds, and they only had our best interest in mind. Let me just read that again. Also, the sources mentioned relate to matters which were decreed by the sages and prophets, even the prophets. In each generation, in order to build a fence around the Torah, we were explicitly taught about this practice by Moses, as implied in Leviticus 18:30. And you shall observe my precepts, tishmor tishmarti, which can be interpreted to mean make safeguards of my precepts. Similarly, includes the customs and ordinances that were ordained and practiced in each generation according to the judgment of the governing court of that generation. We had courts. It's not a free-for-all. They developed, right, until after the Sanhedrin, until after the Talmud basically had been codified, let's say, then it was each community for themselves. But while we were still collective Am Yisrael, so those laws are binding on all Jews. But once we were exiled, in other words, even though the temple was gone and well, we weren't really exiled in its full, like the exile hadn't really taken effect yet. So that was while the Talmud was codified. But once that took place and it was like we were all over the place. That every community basically for themselves. So there was the Sanhedrin up until a certain point. Then that was already gone until the Talmud was codified, just a few hundred years later. At that point, everything was closed. That's what YISRAEL accepted upon themselves. And basically, I'll just repeat it, every community could develop customs. Right? A miracle happened to a city in Germany. Many people were saved. So they made a little Purim. They made a certain type of a holiday for themselves. And those became customs, different customs developed. It's forbidden to deviate from these decisions as it's already applied in Deuteronomy 17:11. It says, do not deviate from the instructions they will give you to the right, to the left, or to the right. And if you do, what are you called? A zaken mamre, a rebellious elder. And you know what the punishment is for being a rebellious elder? You have to really know the Torah well and go against it publicly. And that is the death penalty. So you understand a little bit more why we're neurotic.
Don't need to change a prayer. You change the word in a prayer.
It also includes marvelous judgments and laws which were not received from Moses, but rather were derived by the courts of the later generations based on the principle of biblical exegesis. The elders of those generations made these decisions, included this was the law. Rav Ashi, as I mentioned, including the Talmud. This entire body of knowledge stemmed from the year until. So in other words, it was closed off. At that point, Rav Ashi, Ravina, finished. I think that's the last piece here. Thus, Ravina, Rav Ashi, and their colleagues represent the final era of the great sages of Israel who transmitted the oral law. They passed decrees, ordained practices, and put into effect customs. These decrees, ordinances, and customs spread out among the entire Jewish people in all the places where they lived. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, before we conclude, just go through. I think we talked about the first one a little bit. Okay, to teach wisdom. The Rambam lists all 613 mitzvahs, and this is according to mitzvah number 11. I don't really like the word positive and negative because all mitzvahs, the word mitzvah actually means connect. Remember I told you I'm not going to really talk about this, but we started off by talking some really blessed things about the Torah, and so remind ourselves. We talked about the law. We're talking about a way to connect to God. The word mitzvah, tzadik love, the root means, as Rabbi Feld said, to well together. It means to connect. This is how we connect to whom? To Hashem, and to each other, and to ourselves. Many of the mitzvahs are bein adam la'atzmo, between me and myself. Some of them are to me and my friend, and some, if not all, on some level, between me and God. Right? Different levels. Anyway, so learning Torah is rooted in Bishinantam Levanecha. You shall teach. To teach, it's a huge mitzvah. I believe, and I'm going to tell you, my rabbi told me, when you learn, you should learn in order to teach, because then you are fulfilling the mitzvah in the regard that Hashem wants it done. Be ready to teach. If all you know is Aleph Bet, teach Aleph Bet. Go out there and teach it. It sounds funny. Whatever one law, whatever one philosophical idea you have, teach it. There's a mitzvah to mingle with Torah scholars, to associate with them, to sit constantly among them, and to participate with them. And where do you know this from? It says twice. It says, Levat Gobo or Ubo Tidbak. You may think, and it's true, it is talking about Hashem, but how do you relate to Hashem? How do you recognize Hashem? How do you learn from Hashem? Some of us are blessed with visions. Some of us are blessed with hearing voices. But not all of us. Okay? We have to sit down with the text and with a human being who's in line with that tradition, as you saw. We have a Masorah, a chain, all the way dating back. Find out what it means. Sit down with somebody and cling to them. Go into business with them. Marry your daughters and your sons to their kids. Okay? And the other, which we kind of just quoted, right? If the rabbis, when we say the rabbis, we're not talking about like me, the rabbis today. We're talking about, you see now what we mean. We're talking about from the time of the closing of the Talmud, okay? And then there are a few in each generation, but not your average rabbi walking the streets. According to the teaching, they shall teach you. According to the judgment, they will say to you, you shall do. You shall not deviate from the word which they tell you to the right or to the left. Okay, in summary, in conclusion, number one, we talk about national unity. Right? We're one nation under God. I don't know the rest of it. I think it's America. But, oh yeah, Trump's here. So anyway, national unity is of utmost importance for receiving the Torah. We need to receive the Torah on two levels. Number one, on a personal level. Nobody can deny that. On a national level, however, that we should all be there. We talked about character development and humility. These are necessary traits. We remind you to go back into Pirkei Avot, 6 chapter 6 Mishnah. Talks about the 40 ways to acquiring the Torah. And we really should understand and believe that this is the same Torah that we received at Har Sinai. A lot of people probably don't believe that and think the rabbis messed with it, but it's the same Torah that we received, the same Torah that we received for all the tribes. Okay, it wasn't just for Yehuda, it was for everybody. Okay, so now I think we can turn the lights on. I don't know if I bored you. I tortured you long enough. You can turn the lights on and I'll take questions.
So, dear brother Aaron, David, thank you very much. I learned a lot, and I'm from it, and I'm very grateful for the house of Judah. They have kept the Torah until now for us. You gave great sacrifices. You gave your lives to preserve the Torah until 2017. And thank you very much to the house of Judah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Rabbi.
I have a question. I learned a lot of your sayings, and I have a question. You talk about the Torah written on the stones. Now, could you add some words regarding the prophet of Jeremiah, chapter 31, verses 31 to 33, or 34. Mm-hmm. What he told about there about the new covenant written on our heart. Please.
So I happen to run a few Facebook pages. True Torah Hebrew Roots, that's administrated by me and created and administrated by me. And the other one's called 5-Minute Torah Videos. And my email address was up there and a few other things. So I'd like to stay in touch with you all. And I also have a YouTube channel. I have an organization called Yiboneh. We have so many classes. We use all the greatest rabbis, and we streamline their classes. And if you sign up on the Yiboneh YouTube channel, you'll be alerted to the latest.
Yeah, I have heard it said, it seems like I remember the rabbi once said, a famous rabbi once said, that if 99 prophets incline one way, and a single rabbi inclines the other way, the rabbi is the one to be followed.
I can only imagine that being said after the end of the prophetic point. Now, if you're also talking about the prophets are saying something in terms of the law, you're not allowed to change the law. The prophet doesn't come to change the law. So if you're saying that you have a sage saying one thing, and you have, I call false prophets, but if you have a bunch of prophets saying to do something that is not in the law, then yes, the answer is you follow the one sage. if, I don't know what the scenario is that you're discussing, but if that is, that's how it falls out. There's a whole paragraph about false prophets. You read up on it. Okay? Yeah.
I think I hear you saying that it's our choice if we want to become part of this nation or not. That's a choice we make. The rabbis will say, don't do it. They'll discourage us from doing it. But if we don't want to do it, it seems like Noahide is an option. Because, you know, either we are part of the nation or we're part of a group that worships God.
It is up to you. I don't know what Rabbi would say. Don't do it. I think that there are two ways. I've been involved many times with potential converts. And we've taken them all the way home.
We don't want to do that. We can be a Noahide, which has less requirements and so forth.
Let me just tell you something about the difference. There's a special halachic status called Zera Yisrael. Zera Yisrael means the seed of Israel. If a person who is a non-Jew, bona fide, 100%, doesn't claim to be descendant from Jews or assimilated Jews, he says he wants to convert. So there may be, and rightfully so, check him out, make sure he's for real and give him, not a hard time, but, let him know what he's up against, and let's just say you push it away a little bit. But if you're from Zera Yisrael, if you're from the seed of Israel, which means you have in the lineage, and I don't know how far back it has to go, okay, but you feel you have it, you can prove it. So there is a automatic acceptance. What does that mean? Automatic acceptance for conversion. But there's no pushing away. In fact, there may be an encouragement. And when I say to you, you have to go out and teach the world, we have to get these facts down. You run into somebody, he says, I'm Jewish. You got to get him moving towards, the right direction. Observance. Acceptance of the mitzvahs, the hukim, right? The decrees and his ordinances. So he says, I want to keep them. He says, look, dude, keep the 7 and go to heaven. I mean, what do you need that for? He says, I want more. So first, even as a ben Noach, you can keep more mitzvahs. It's optional. You can keep more. So there is a halachic difference between someone who is of the seed of Israel and someone who isn't, in terms of pushing them away. So that's all I have to say.
Cannot speak so loud. Okay. First of all, it's an honor to get to know you because I heard you also a co-founder of HCOM.
Not an H. I worked there 20 years.
Okay, but when I don't have the time to hear shiurim by a rabbi personally, then I go into the internet and I'm very often on this site. So, and there's a lot of very good teaching. I read in your PowerPoint one sentence by Rashi, which really hit my heart, which is Kish Echad Velet Echad, like one man with one heart. And this is indeed the thing I'm focusing on. And I do have a personal question for you. You said when you have been very young, you have been occupied with other religions, also with Christianity. And I just made some notes. My personal question is, what is not what doesn't correspond to the Torah when you examined Christianity? Because I just got kind of other revelations through what you have been telling here, like in Exodus 24:12, if God said to Moshe, "Come to me to the mountain." To be on the mountain, to be climbed up always means authority. Yeshua said, "I give you my authority." Then Yeshua also said, those who love me will keep my commandments, and they will be written on your hearts. That we have just had this discussion right now. And then maybe somehow I also celebrated Lag BaOmer and 33. He has finished his mission at the age of 33, and God told Moses, spread out the Torah. Jesus said, spread out the Torah and the Brit Chadashah. And so I find more things in common. Even for me, Yeshua is the one man with where we can also become one heart. I would be interested. What you said, I found contradictions. So okay, thank you.
Thank you. First of all, we all, I think Stephen or Gene, somebody mentioned at the beginning the authority of what we call the New Testament, who wrote it, and how involved was, I'll use these words lightly, the Holy Roman Empire. How much involvement did they have in canonizing and editing and whatnot beforehand? And was Paul really, who they say he is? Can you admit that there's a difference between Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel? Than these, Luke and John and Matthew and all these guys? I mean, come on. It's like a different level. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. But when you go into the New Testament and you be a little bit more, precise, you can see there are many misquotes. There's a lot of plagiarism going on. Fine. But misquotes. And they just don't match up. So take your time, examine the word a little closer, the original word, against the so-called quotes, and see how they match up. Okay, that's all I can really tell you. Too many. God doesn't make mistakes. You just find one mistake, the whole thing's gone. You're not going to find any in the Old Testament, whatever you call the Old Testament, and I believe you'll find plenty, unfortunately, for some of you in the New Testament.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, please. I've got a question that may I answer, Werner, just an additional issue, because we know we field in questions like that all the time in our discussions on the internet with inquirers, and the issue of the new covenant, which did away with the Torah and the laws. Jeremiah 31 is a 33. Good. There's a new covenant, and if you read it, yes, you can imply this, which the third church teaches, that there's no law, there's no Torah. We now under the happy, do as you like, just love God and God loves you. They should start reading from verse 1. There are 30 verses before that. And every verse there, we're not going to read it now, I challenge you, going to read it tonight. Every verse coming up to the new covenant, he says, when I bring you back, and I will bring you back. That's why we're sitting here. And then I will make a new covenant with you. They don't read the first 30 verses. We're under the new covenant. I'm sorry, you're not under the new covenant. Jeremiah 30 verses before that confirms it. Rabbi, I want to ask you something that puzzled me. You quoted several times the verses, and I didn't know exactly where it says, what I have written. Was that Moses speaking, or was it Hashem speaking? And if it was Moses, I can understand it. If it was Hashem, didn't he say that he only wrote 10 words? So can you clarify? I'm confused with that, please.
So the Gemara explained the words Asher Ketavti, that's God speaking, and it's referring to the prophets and the writings. And why is that? First of all, the order doesn't really make any sense. We have to ask. If the Luchot Evan, the tablets are the tablets, that's fine. Then the Torah is the 5 books of Moses, which is also okay. And it says Asher Ketavti, which I wrote, it cannot be going on the 5 books of Moses. There's already a problem with the order. Because God didn't write the Torah, Moses wrote the Torah. God wrote the 10 Commandments, as we say. They weren't 10 words, they were 10 statements. So we have a problem already with the order. We have to begin to think, what's going on here? Then, HaMitzvah is the Mishnah. The Mishnah comes before the Nevi'im and Kesubim? Does that make any sense? But yes, why? Because the Mishnah was given at Mount Sinai. The Mishnah, the Oral Torah, was given with the explanation, meaning the explanation of the Torah. And now it makes sense. Now, back to the Sher Ketavti, which I have written because Nevi'im and Kesubim are also written. It's like Mikra, it's like the Torah, but it doesn't have the same halakhic status. When you read the 5 books of Moses, you have to read it from the parchment. The Nevi'im and Kesubim, you don't need to. So, one is Mikra, that's 5 books, Sher Ketavti, which I've written. Again, he gave over the principles, and as the prophets lived out their lives, they wrote down what it was, but it wasn't God who actually wrote it, like the 10 Commandments, but that's what it means, and that makes a lot more sense. I'll thank you very much. I will mention this is a journey, okay? The way the 5 books are written it's your story. It's an individual story, it's a national story, it's a global story. Every one of us are an actor in the script. And there's so many different levels. And I actually wanted to call my wife up. My wife, if she could just, I'm sure, just a few minutes. Is it okay if she shares her own personal story? Last year I shared 3 minutes of her personal story. She grew up a Hindu, and then she became a Christian, and today she's a righteous convert. And 3 minutes, just to...
Yeah,
if you
sure.
don't mind.
Absolutely. We want to hear her story.
Your took act follow. Great, thank you.
Yeah,
dear.
thank you.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'll try to just tell you, just in a few minutes. I was born in a Hindu home. I was born in a Hindu family, and I couldn't connect with Hinduism. At 17 years old, I had what I thought was a Christian experience. And I had issues with the church. This is not a condemnation for anybody who goes to church. I had issues because I had questions that I couldn't get answers for. And I was actually misunderstood. I'm one of these people that don't know a lot, not really knowledgeable about history and all this stuff, but I saw a picture of Israel. I didn't see the word Israel. I just saw the Kotel, the Western Wall, pictures of Shavuot, Sukkot, while I was at a convention in Budapest. And I had an emotional reaction, and I looked up and I saw the word Israel. And this is how Hashem speaks to me, intuitively. I don't know a lot, I have to say. The more I know, the more I don't know. So I came here on that prodding in 1999, and I felt as if I came home. I couldn't understand it. Again, I had nothing. I didn't know about Israel in terms of the context of Christianity, because the way I was taught is that the church was Israel, so I didn't really know. I keep saying that. And I met Rabbi Feld after 2 months, and a few other rabbis, and they asked me about my family names. My father's family name was Shoshanani, with the Hebrew root Shoshan. My mother's last name is Matani, and you could say Matan, Matana. But also there's a river called Mitani, where there was northern tribe dispersion. And Shoshanani, the kind of Indians, we're actually Indian, are from Persia. So you can read in between the lines that I was overwhelmed. I knew in the second month, intuitively, I was a Jew inside my heart. And I fought with the idea, nobody told me that I should convert. I started to keep Shabbat. I was here in Israel. And I didn't know what to do with JC. This is not a condemnation again. But I started to do my stuff. And then, lo and behold, 5 years later of doing that, while I was in Israel, this was 12 years ago, I had what you would call an epiphany on Holocaust Memorial Day, when the siren went off, and it came intuitively that if I think I'm a Jew, I'm going to have to come home all the way. Meantime, when I was reading the Tanakh, and I saw about Ephraim and Judah. Every time I read those things, I wept. I said, I'm on that page. That's me. I'm on that page. And I didn't know what to do with JC. When I had that epiphany, the next morning I went to the Beit Din, I opened a file, and I started my conversion. I wanted to do it genuinely, so I parked Christianity. I said, you know what? I don't have to understand the pieces. I just know that I have to. I was compelled. The land and the people and me, all together, I was so compelled. I had to do it. It was like a fight of my faith. And this is what I did. I opened a file and I converted 12 years ago. And I'm very grateful for the Hindu part and the Christian part. Because I would say I followed Jesus and I got one God. He disappeared. Because I followed him purely. I didn't follow the church. I followed God. Followed Jesus. And now I understand much better. I look back at Hinduism and Christianity, and I'm so thankful for my journey. Just to find one true God. One true God. And that was another buster. Like, I said, what do I do with the divinity? Oh, it was clear for me. Clear. Not knocking him. That he had to have been a man, and it made me appreciate him. Oh my goodness. He had to have been a man. And I did a repentance in my heart for seeing him as divinity. And I feel very comfortable with all sorts of people, no condemnation. Jews don't look for converts. We're not interested. You know what? You can't cut this journey unless you're supposed to. And I'm telling you, I'm not the same person. It's an amazing journey, but we all have our own, and we respect you, and just like we know you respect us, and Hashem should bless you in your search, and we should all find that contentment.
Anybody have questions for me?
There's a story of a Jewess who came home, and that's your story.
Yes.
We pretty well have to finish now.
Okay, I'm sure we are.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Of course, it's
I
coffee time.
can I just mention just one thing? My wife and I, we run an organization called Yiboneh. And we were talking to Rabbi Feld. Rabbi Feld, you hear me? We were discussing, we hear you guys saying, what can we do? What can we do? We have the infrastructure. We're ready and prepared to open up a yeshiva, a learning center for whatever you guys want to call yourselves.
How do you spell that?
Yeshiva?
No. your website.
Yeah, Yiboneh. YIBONEH.com. I have cards. We already have the infrastructure. We learn all day long. That's what we do. We learn and teach, and we have social activities. We have the whole infrastructure all set up, basically, is what I'm saying. And we're happy to work with any one of you one-on-one, as you saw off the screen before it disappeared. One-on-one, individually or collectively, however you want to do it, we're there for you, okay? So Yehuda, you ask all the time, what are we doing? We're here for you. We're opening our arms. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And now it's time for coffee and tea.
How long do you stay open? Do you open on
24/7.